Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is one of my dear friends. Her name is Nicky. Nicky is an artist, an intuitive guide, an observer of life, an embodied feminine creator, and so much more that labels can't even explain. It's such an honor to have you on, Nicky. Welcome on.
Thank you. Thanks for starting this podcast where we can kind of just share the journey together. And we're all spiritual teachers, so it's like,
Exactly.
this is great.
Exactly. That's how I look at it. I mean, everybody has something that they can teach others, and it's just so beautiful to be able to bring this out to the world. So that's the intention with this. So it's so awesome to have you on. So we normally like to start out with sharing and hearing about your awakening journey. So would you like to share
Ooh.
that with us?
Where to start? It's like the awakening journey. It began in the womb.
Right.
But I think, let's see, my real like spiritual awakening happened in 2009.
Hmm.
I was living in Memphis, Tennessee, doing like real estate flips and like going into like older neighborhoods, getting houses, helping. I was with my high school sweetheart at the time.
Hmm.
So, I went through like a deep depression right when I got there because I had left, California, I left my job. I was like, no friends, just
That's
like,
tough.
yeah, it was kind of like a rock bottom, but I played well, I
Hmm.
put the face on. And then a couple months into it, I got a phone call in like the middle of the night that my first love, my first boyfriend passed away like suddenly.
Hmm.
And that like, oh my God, I was like, Devin? Devin died? It was just like so freaking shocking.
And this was the guy you
And
were with in Tennessee?
no,
Oh, okay.
my previous boyfriend. I
Hmm.
started young.
Hmm.
I started dating super young.
Hmm.
So my first love, Devin Davis, he came to me in a dream. And this is like before I was like aware of like spiritual stuff. I was very much in the church in Memphis. I get myself out of the depression, children, just, a raised Christian. And so
We lost you there
that
for a
was,
second.
oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, where was I before you
You
lost me?
yeah, we just started hearing you sharing about Devin.
Okay. So I was, um, so yeah, Devin died. He visited me in a dream. Did you hear that
Yeah. Hmm.
part? Okay. And I was, very Christian programmed. And so I wasn't really aware of like the astral realm and like dream visitations or that kind of thing. I was still very fresh. I was maybe 20 years old. And after his funeral, like he came super, super clear to me in my dream space. And I remember just like it was like on this curvy, like space like plane. It's all
Whoa.
and we met eye to eye, and I remember he had like these really piercing blue eyes.
Wow.
And I was like, Devin, you're dead. And he was like, he didn't say anything. He just smiled. And I was like, just like this energy was rushing through me. And I had looked at him and I said, is there a God? And he smiled and he said, there is a higher power.
Whoa, I'm getting
And
chills.
and we had this like deep cosmic hug. And then I woke up in my bed and I was like,
Whoa.
holy crap.
Wow.
What what was that? And
Yeah.
it has like it was so clear, and has stuck with me. I'm 36 now. I was 20, so 16 years later, and it's still just I get the chills too thinking about it.
Wow.
And from that moment, I feel like spirit was working with me to awaken my intuitive abilities, to awaken my third eye, like trusting the strange happenings and paying more attention.
Hmm.
And so then, like, things were starting to happen, like, rapidly. And one of the biggest things that I remember in the awakening, and this was like this solidified, like, okay, there's something really crazy cosmic going on. Because me and my boyfriend at the time, we were walking to the gas station to get like soda, because that's where I was consciously at the time,
Hmm.
like chips, soda, McDonald's, whatever.
Right.
So we walked, and I remember I'm like, oh, there's a glass on the ground. Whatever. Doesn't make any sense to me. We go and we're walking back, and I'm like, no, no, we need to cross the street. We need to cross the street. And he's like, okay. We had our dogs with us. He's like, all right, but our house is on this side of the street. So why are we crossing? And I'm like, I don't know. Just there was glass. I had an excuse.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So we're walking, and all of a sudden, a car just flies down the street, goes over the curb right where we would have been, goes up the curb and into a house.
Wow. Oh man.
And I was like, oh, we would have been dead,
Right.
dead. Our dogs and us up with Devin.
Hmm.
So that was like a big kind of turning point for me. And
Hmm.
like it shook me just as much as the dream, but in a more physical reality way.
Right.
Like I just got saved by something inside of me, angels or guides that were telling me get over on the other side of the street.
Was that your
So that
first
was kind of
experience with that intuitive side of yourself?
consciously,
Hmm.
or maybe things like that happened, but I wasn't aware of them, and I
Hmm.
didn't, process them the same way.
Yeah.
So then, things happened really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found out, I had this weird intuition. Again, the intuition was just so strong that the partner we had, who was our high school economics teacher, he was like investing and we were doing the work.
Hmm.
I had a feeling, I was like, I don't have a good feeling about this. I don't think he's doing, what he's saying he's going to do.
Hmm.
And so I was like telling my boyfriend, like, you need to get the contract that you signed about
Hmm.
like why we're working so hard and like what we're going to receive. It all turned to crap.
Oh wow.
My intuition was spot on. And eventually, like, we got out of there and came back to California.
Wow.
But I came back to California a changed person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took a little while. So that was about 2010. And then things were just, ramping up. And like I have some crazy stories. I mean,
Let's get, I want to hear them as
there's
many as
so
we can.
many.
Yeah.
So we got back. They were going through a bunch of health challenges.
Oh, we lost you there for a second. We got back.
Okay. It must be I don't know.
I think
Maybe it's
it's
my
my internet.
internet.
I think it's
Is
my
it?
internet for some
Okay.
reason.
Could
Yeah.
be mine too. Or
Okay.
it's the energy waves. It's
We are in
just
Mercury
sometimes
retrograde
happens.
right now. So,
Of course, we have technological difficulties.
right, right.
Oh. So where was I? Grandparents. You heard that? I was like super close with them. Oh, you didn't
No,
hear that?
no, we just got back to California.
Okay. And it took me a bit to kind of ground back into this kind of home life. Like we moved back in with my mom.
Hmm.
Um, my grandparents got real ill, and I was very close with them. And this is kind of where my pet sitting began because
Hmm.
that's something I also do on, and it's kind of a spiritual experience, pet sitting, because you get to really like connect with the animal kingdom.
For sure. Yeah.
So my grandparents were in the hospital, and I'm like, who the hell is taking care of their cats? And so I got this download to, get a break from, because like, you think you're enlightened and then you spend some time with your family and you're like,
Right.
oh, okay. Maybe I got some work to do.
The best teachers, man, for sure.
The best teachers, serious spiritual teachers. Uh-huh.
Hmm.
So I volunteered, me and my boyfriend, to go live at their house for a bit. And that was up in Hesperia, which is like up in the high desert.
Hmm.
And that was great. I was like, I forget what happened. I was reading, I think I was reading Carlos Castaneda or something like that. And oh, no, no, I was reading Wayne Dyer's book, one of Wayne Dyer's books. And
Okay.
Wayne Dyer was a big, like, spiritual guide for me back
Hmm.
then. He like really helped me, deprogram some of the things around like the dogmatic religion I was
Hmm.
infused with.
Right.
So,
Right.
so we brought a Wayne Dyer book up there, and Wayne Dyer was talking about Carlos Castaneda's book, The Art of Dreaming.
Okay.
Okay, great book. Like one of the I would I haven't read it since, back then, but wow, that one was a shifty. So
Hmm.
get this. So, like, great. I want to read The Art of Dreaming. And, at this time we didn't have a lot of money. We were like poor, you
Hmm.
know. So I'm like, let's go to the library. We can
Hmm.
look for a book.
Yeah.
So we go to the local Hesperia library. And I'm like, just looking around, looking at the spiritual section, trying to find this book. They're like, hey, kids, we're closing. You got to go. I'm like, no, we didn't find the book.
Hmm.
So we're like walking out, and there's this, whatever library shelves going
Hmm.
up. And I'm just like not really paying attention. And then my head, like spirit would do this, like turn my head. Guess what book is just laying flat on the shelf?
The one you're looking
The
for, right?
The Art of Dreaming.
Right.
I was like, I grab it. I'm like, what kind? It's almost hard to believe. I'm like, does my boyfriend even remember what happened? Well, he's an ex now, but does he remember how crazy synchronistic this journey was?
Hmm.
So, the Art of Dreaming was another level because Carlos Castaneda, he goes pretty deep into like the other realms and doing some, I forget what, mescaline or something to like
Okay.
awaken, so and it was just a wild journey uh to read that book. And one thing led to another. By 2011, I got an old job back. I was working for some corporate, it was a hair salon, but they had turned corporate since I had worked there like when I was 18, and they were like a really cool hip hair salon.
Hmm.
And then by the time I got back, they had sold to a major corporation.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it shifted. Like when I went back, it was great. Like I made good money. I
Hmm.
like I was really great at like running the front desk, making sure all the things were right. And
Hmm.
but I was like, oh,
It's a
it's a
different
different
energy when that
energy.
happens, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the soul of the company like
Hmm.
changed,
Yeah.
you know. So then I got another job. So I was working two corporate jobs, and I was leasing apartments out in the beach,
Hmm.
like Huntington area, and living in Newport Beach because we ended up moving.
Hmm.
But, you know, and that's when the real like I was really focusing on reprogramming my mind at that
Hmm.
time. So 2011, I'm like deep in Wayne Dyer, and I'm understanding, wow, I'm fucking programmed.
Hmm.
I am programmed. I need to work on these thoughts. So I think I was listening to 101 Ways to Transform Your Life. And it was like these 101 new beliefs.
Oh,
I was
wow.
listening to that every single day. Like every day I was like listening to it. So these thoughts were like getting in there.
Yeah.
But I remember I started to like feel something. I was like, okay, this is great. I'm living my dream. I always wanted to live at the beach.
Mm-hmm.
This was my vision board coming to life, but it did not feel like aligned. It
Mm-hmm.
was like there's something not correct here. What is it? And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
seeking. And every day I would take the long route because it was Highway 1. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, even if I can't go to the beach, I want to see the beach.
For sure. And it's one
So,
of the most beautiful drives ever.
so good.
Yeah.
So I'd be driving along, listening to my 101 thoughts, you know, dreaming like, man, I'm working a 9 to 5 and I can't enjoy like all this beauty that's around me. I can a little, but it's always rush. Like, okay, get your feet in the earth for 10 minutes and then you got to get to work. It's
Right.
like it was
Right.
always like rush. I could never I had you know, I had struggles with anxiety and like I was still at that time on pharmaceuticals for anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
depression, OCD. Like I have a hair pulling. I don't have it now. Well, sometimes I do, but it's definitely gotten better. But you know, pharmaceutical industry, like I had to break free from that too. So once I started to transform my mind, I started to realize like I can't take these synthetic drugs. Like it's not working. It's making me worse. You know, so I started getting aligned with all the dimensions, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like clear the body, clean up my diet,
Mm-hmm.
get my thoughts right. And I think because I did those it was almost like first the diet had to change. No more McDonald's,
Yeah. Yeah, that's number
no
one.
more Taco Bell.
Right.
And then the mind was able to come on and like get, you know, delete some of the anxiety or depression. Or I didn't realize till later, but the gut has such a big impact on our mental state.
Well, it's so interesting because I've noticed that for me, when I have any sort of anxiety, I don't have it very much anymore. But because I've realized that sometimes it's just energy that I'm holding in my gut. And if I can do tapping or something like a hape to clear that,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
the anxiety goes away immediately because it's just stuck energy in my body that wants to move and release.
yep,
And it's interesting because sometimes there are thoughts related to it, but other times it's just energy, you know? And if the
yeah,
energy can move, if I can just physically tune into where I'm holding that energy in my body, then when that's released, the anxiety dissipates.
yep. Oh, that's huge. That's why Kundalini yoga became a part of the path for
There we
me.
go. Let's talk about that.
Oh, Kundalini yoga didn't come until later on, but it was all, you know, perfect timing.
Hmm.
Perfect timing.
Hmm.
But I had to quit corporate. Like, you know, one day I just like, I can't freaking do this. And
Right.
I text my boss. I was like, I quit, like out of the blue. And then I text my
Mm.
boyfriend and I'm like, I'm quitting. And he worked for the same company. He's like, all right, I'm quitting too.
Wow.
And
And you
I'm
guys
like,
didn't
oh
have any
my God.
backups or anything at the moment, right?
No,
Okay. You
no.
just went for it. So for a lot of people that I've talked to, it seems as though people that really make big strides in their life, they take these big leaps without knowing what's on the other side. It's like diving into the deep end and seeing what happens, and then just trusting that spirit's going to catch you with some pillows and make it way better.
You hit on a big one, that trust component. can you trust something that you can't physically see?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you have faith? And that's a huge one. I had a lot of faith. I almost feel like I had more faith then, like beginner's luck or something, than I do now. Now I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to take that leap. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so when you quit, what started opening up for you?
Okay, so we have 5 days to move out of the apartment. Otherwise, they were gonna rack the rent up like double.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, we can't. So I'm like, I got rid of my car. We sold everything or gave it away from the apartment. And I had no cell phone either because I had the
Well,
only cell phone I had left was the work phone. And I was like, I don't really need it.
right.
Whatever. I got my CDs.
Right. Right.
But my boyfriend at the time, he had a truck. He
Mm-hmm.
had the phone. So I think actually saying that out loud, it's like maybe that was a big leap into the feminine part of me
Big time.
that I don't necessarily know I wasn't in touch with her very, very well back then.
Mm-hmm.
But then, something miraculous happened. And um, there was a girl that also worked for the company who had been talking to my boyfriend at the time. He was learning about something called growfood.org. And it was very similar to woofers.
Okay.
I tried to find it. It no longer exists. So it
Okay.
was like, it was there and then it was gone.
And for those that don't
So
know what woofers are, what is that?
it's like the World Organic Farmers, something where you work trade. Like you
Mm-hmm.
get hooked up with an organic farm, you go live there for free, but you
Mm-hmm.
work. And
Right.
then they're supposed to feed you,
Right. Right.
hopefully.
Yeah.
And it's a work trade. So you
Mm-hmm.
get to go learn and immerse yourself in, some people had animal farms, some people had vegetable gardens or whatever, but I probably emailed 10, 20 farms. Some
Wow.
were over, um, East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Some were, Midwest. And it was like, oh, we just didn't have money. Like we couldn't get there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seemed great, but like we couldn't get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, well, again, let's freaking trust this weird process I'm in because, oh my gosh, it felt so magical, but it was also like, am I really, am I doing this right? Like, is something going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of surprised at like how I could write to these people. And I was like, whoa, I didn't realize I was a writer. I was always kind of programmed in school that I got good grades, but like I struggled with like homework and all that crap.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, but I can write. I can write these emails and like
Yeah.
express myself. And
Mm-hmm.
um finally this one farm popped up for Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, huh. It was like, something was there. I could feel it. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm gonna write these people. And she owned a local apothecary, which I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, and what is that? What is that for the people that don't know?
Apothecary is like a natural herbal remedy shop.
Right.
So, it's much more available nowadays. But
Mm-hmm.
like back then, it was still kind of like fresh. It
Right.
was like, what the? So it was like NorCal, and I had no idea. Like I had never been past like San Francisco, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up they like us, we have skills. We just came from renovations in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, come. So we're like, okay, we
Mm-hmm.
can actually get there. It's only a few hours,
Right.
We can
Right.
we can make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like June 2011. We're headed up north.
Mm-hmm.
Packed our shit. We're going. And then I think it was such a culture shock because it was way back in the woods. Um, I had never seen the stars like that.
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, we got out of the car after like getting super lost because it was so dark. We're like city kids, like going to the woods. And I was just like, oh my, it was like, I was amazed. I think it was like a full moon that night that we arrived,
Mm-hmm.
and we move into a tent, and it's like an army tent.
Mm-hmm.
So living off grid all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
outhouse, outdoor like hose shower that heats up in the day,
Oh wow.
and we're just like poof, like
Mm-hmm.
you're here, you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big, big, big initiation for me. No phone, out in the middle of the freaking woods.
Mm-hmm.
The place had, I mean, it was gorgeous, but I was still like very fresh. Like I was a noob in the like nature world. Like
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with like gardening, and my pop-up taught me like gardening stuff, but like I had never immersed like that.
Okay.
So that was a big awakening, was like nature. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have a lot of money. And they ended up not really being able to feed us because the timing wasn't great.
Oh boy. Okay.
So yeah, it was a lot of learning and trusting. That was the biggest, I think, piece, was like, can you trust me? And I would always hear that. Like God, to me, like God is nature.
Mm-hmm.
And so can you trust nature to provide? And I swear, so many moments. We got down to sometimes $4.
Wow.
And then I something would happen, and you know, an abundance would come.
Was there like mushrooms growing in that area and things that you could gather?
Uh, you know, not in my skill set back then.
Okay. Okay.
So, we just tried to live simply. Like we'd buy rice, beans. I was pretty much turning into a vegetarian at that time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then the price, we were at a little town called Point Arena. And so it's a very small market, very small little place. If you
Mm-hmm.
didn't grow your food, like, expensive, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just it was a great learning curve, like to just how little we really need to
Mm-hmm.
be happy.
Yeah. A
Wow.
lot of that's a big one. That's a big one, I think, for me because spirits also place me in those times when the bank account's super low and it's like what really matters, what is actually important, and for me that's relationships with friends, family, and then also like connection, right? Like trust and also connection to the divine.
Yes. I think that's like it's like the most important,
Mhm.
because without that connection with the divine or God or source, the connection with other is like a little bit convoluted, or you don't, like, when you have connection with divine, like you can really see, like I can see you as divine. I can see even the crazy meth head on the street. I'm like, I see you, God. You're
Mhm.
acting crazy. Wow, what an interesting manifestation.
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
without that connection, trigger,
Mhm.
you know
Yeah.
so yeah, it was so, so, so important as we all continue to awaken on this journey.
Big time. Big time. So you're on the farm. How long were you there for?
At that specific one, because they couldn't feed us, we lasted, well, here's the thing, the universe stepped in,
Okay.
because a friend, we had like a family dinner, so we were invited, and then the friends came over, and the friend had a tiny home on his property, like up the road.
Nice.
And he got us.
Nice.
He's like, come over, come see my property. I can pay you. And they're like, no, we're gonna lose these kids. So
Yeah.
we went up to his property, and like when spirit gives you like a a symbol, or like you're like, oh, I keep noticing this thing. And for me, it was hummingbird at that
Mm,
time.
hmm.
And we will walk in his house, and there's a big hummingbird, like stained glass thing,
Hmm.
just like
Hmm.
glistening. And I was like, okay, note taken. Like there's a
Right.
little synchronicity.
Hmm.
And it was just like forest, like all down, and then ocean. And I was like,
Whoa.
bro.
This is
Oh
it. This
my
is it.
God, this is it.
We're
I
in.
got chills. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can pay us, and we have a house. Okay.
Right.
And it was like a cob, like the inside of the house was like a cob, like wall. And we
Hmm.
had just been reading about the hand sculpted house,
Hmm.
which is like all about building with cob and
Hmm.
earthen homes and earthen ovens and all that stuff. So the fact that that was
So it was
cob walled house.
so it was kind of like an Earth ship in a way.
No, it was just a tiny home, but they had
Okay.
plastered
Okay.
instead of like drywall, or, what is it called? Fiberglass insulation.
Hmm.
It was earthen home. It
That's
was like,
beautiful. Yeah, and for those that
yeah,
don't know, cob is like a mix of earth, dirt, mud, and usually hay,
sometimes
right?
straw. Yeah,
Straw and
yeah.
hay, yeah. And then that is just stuck all over the walls, and it creates this insulation, right? It keeps it warm in the winter and cool in the summer, right?
Yep. And no chemicals. Like
Hmm.
it's like the air is clean when you're
Hmm.
inside. It's
Hmm.
nice. Yeah.
Cool.
So that was an upgrade, major
Right.
upgrade. We're
Right.
like, okay, we're moving up already.
Uh-huh.
So it was great uh, to live in a tent for a while. But, it rains up there more than I expected. And
Hmm.
so it was great. It was like really, truly like, God, I'm your child. Like, I really feel like you're taking care of me.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, we learned a whole nother thing at this place. It was like constant learning curves
Right.
and getting downloaded with being okay with change. Like things changed very rapidly,
Hmm.
very quick. And if I was resisting, oh, it did not work out.
Yeah. Well, change is the only constant,
Exactly.
you know? And, it's only when we grasp onto something so hard that spirit can't maneuver. And
Yep.
even then, it seems like spirit can still come in and be like, nope, you're doing it anyway, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, okay, so you're in the Cobb house, you're learning all these new skills, right? How to grow different crops. What other things were you guys learning?
Let's see. Well, also learning about people and
Hmm.
humans. And the guy that was owned the property,
Hmm.
I later found out that he was like a tantric man.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. And this was before my tantra training.
Hmm.
I didn't go to tantra school till years later. So he must have planted a seed because
Okay.
I didn't have much clue about the sexual enlightenment or the path of sexuality at that time.
Hmm.
I knew I wanted more than what my boyfriend was like giving me at the time, intimately
Hmm.
and that sort of thing. But the guy also, he grew peyote,
Okay.
and so I found out they did ceremonies, and like I didn't know what that kind of stuff was.
Oh,
Like I didn't
wow.
know ayahuasca ceremonies and stuff.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so I was like, oh, like no wonder this is a trippy house and a trippy guy. It's like
Mm.
he's like on another level,
Hmm.
connected with nature and like painting his house like purple and green and orange and all
Oh,
kinds
that's
of
so
cool.
cool. This guy sounds really cool.
Yeah, and so he was teaching me as well because
Hmm.
I was a seeker. Like I was so hungry for like knowledge,
Yeah.
and I had like in this whole process changed my Facebook name to wake up to the truth.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I'm sure all my high school friends and all these people were like, what the hell happened to Nikki? Like,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like conspiracy posting. I'm like talking about aliens. I'm talking about nature and trusting the universe. And what a great time. Like, that
Wow.
was like I was, really shooting off. And this was kind of like I smoked weed and we did like, they grew pot, of course. It's in NorCal. Like,
Mhm.
everyone grew weed up there.
Yeah.
And so, there was herb involved and sometimes like occasional mushroom trip. Mushrooms really were part of the, beginning of the awakening
Hmm.
was I call them allies.
Yeah, for a lot of people, I think psychedelics are a big part because it just really opens up what this reality is really like, you know? And it's really interesting. I'm looking at my wall right now and I have a painting of Van Gogh with like the swans. Have you ever seen that painting?
Maybe
And it's like turning 3D on me. I've never seen it do that. So yeah, it's
that's one thing that I think is going on right now for us on the path is that we don't necessarily need to take in the stuff. We are like already tapping into that altered state
well,
naturally.
absolutely. And I think that there's a different superpower that was activated in me with different types of plant medicines that I worked with. Each one gave me a new deep deepening and a new access point, if you will. Like
Yes.
sassafras is one of my favorite medicines because it's a heart opener, right? And when I took sassafras, it was in a very, sacred setting. I had set the setting, and in that on that medicine, I was able to see from above the programs and all the beliefs that were playing out in real time of myself and of my girlfriend at the time that I was doing the medicine with. And it was so
Mm,
powerful because I would be like, oh, wow, like right there, I'm blocking myself. Right there, she's blocking herself. Right there is what's causing that issue. And it was like real time, but like from above. Like literally, I could, it was like my spirit was looking down at what was happening in real time.
mm,
Have you ever had that experience?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Different, yep.
yeah,
Multiple times.
yeah, and then that transferred over into real life where I'll be talking to someone and then I'll be able to experience what is actually happening, like what could be a potential program that's blocking this person, and it just comes in like an intuition, like a knowing.
Hmm.
And
Unknowing, I was just thinking that.
yeah, and it's so interesting. And mushrooms are a huge part of it, especially taking enough mushrooms to go into those, like through the veil, they say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where on the other side of the veil, there's this whole another world that is makes this reality just like kind of dissolve and makes it like, oh wow, okay, this is like nothing like what is actually happening. We're only experiencing and seeing with our eyes very, very small, tiny little percentage of what's actually going on. It's yeah, it's a huge game changer to because also like facing the fear of that, right? Like with each medicine, there's so much unknown. What's gonna come up? Like, what am I gonna have to face? Like those kind of questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like whatever it is, I'm gonna be fine, you know,
Yeah.
and I'll work through it.
Yeah.
And I'm coming out the other end of it with this new empowerment piece, right? Like,
Mm.
okay, if I did that, I can really do anything, you know?
Mm.
And especially with medicines like combo, where it's like a warrior medicine, you're not actually going into those realms, but there is this feeling because there's poison, literal poison in your body, right? Of like, oh man, I feel like I'm dying, you know? And then it's like, no, but I'm working with the medicine, right? And then the medicine's working with me, and then I'm able to you like co create with the medicine to clear myself from
Right.
whatever isn't there. And combo is fascinating because it for me I would have something like a back pain, right?
Mm.
And I would go in and I'd be like, okay, I have this back pain, not really relating it to anything, right? But then in the combo, I'm able to, it's only like a 20-minute journey for those that haven't done it. It's a frog medicine where they use the poison off of a frog from the Amazon. And when I'm on the medicine, the emotions and the sensations of something from my past is able to be processed. Like that low back pain for me was correlated to energy I was still holding on to from a previous breakup. And
Mm.
I purged and I released all that energy and my back pain completely went away afterwards.
I
So
better get on the combo.
it's so it's so fascinating because I would have never before going into the journey made that connection. But for whatever reason, that part of my body was still holding that energy and I was able to release it, let go, cry, purge, and then back pain was gone and there was a huge relief from that, you know?
And then back pain didn't come back.
No.
Nice.
No, I
I
mean
have heard so many stories. Like,
it comes back for me at times when I'm financially worried. And it
okay.
and it doesn't matter how much money I'm actually making. It's about the thought in my mind of like a lack of
Hmm.
money. And there's a correlation there that I've found when I have that thought of like, oh no, how am I going to pay my bills? Then the back pain's there. And then as soon as like I know a check's coming in or whatever, and like I have a more stable income, then it's gone. But I am working,
So curious.
yeah, but I am working with Hape on a regular basis, which is like a tobacco snuff that helps us ground and clear the body. And
Hmm.
with that, I'm clearing it daily. So it's not like if I wasn't doing that, it may have lasted longer, you know?
Right. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so you started working with mushrooms, right?
At
And
12.
at 12.
That was my first trip.
Whoa.
A
What
big
was
one.
that like?
Oh man. I didn't know what I was taking. We just like, we'd steal my mom's car at night. Sorry, mom, if you can hear this. She knows. You'd fall asleep and I'd snatch your keys and I'd go on a joyride.
How did you even know how to drive at 12?
Oh my God, I was the best driver. I think it just the only maybe okay, from driving the John Deere tractor.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
When I was real little, I would just putz around the, yard. Blah, blah,
Uh-huh.
blah. That's all I wanted to do. And I've always had that in me as a little girl. Like all I wanted was a Barbie Jeep or go-kart. I
Hmm.
loved to drive.
Hmm.
And so when I found my um rebellion indigo child side,
Hmm.
yeah, I took the Explorer out nightly almost when I was like, 12, 13.
Whoa. And who,
And
one of the kids in the neighborhood just had mushrooms?
yep,
Wow.
Riverside, California, we had like some, we were adulting hard. We were
Wow.
young. And so we took his mushrooms because he was being he was just being an ass. This little kid, he would always rampage, and my friend's like, "I'm taking your mushrooms."
Hmm.
He, so we split them, and it was like a bag like that big of
So at
grounded up
least 5 grams
mushroom.
probably each, right?
Yeah. So I was driving. So by the time we left, I was like, "Whoa!" And I think there was like a portal created of safety because there was no cars on the street, no cops found us. And when we were driving, I was probably going 10 miles an hour down like the main road. And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everything is like moving and cats are walking across the freaking windshield. I'm just like in a video game. That's what it felt
Psychedelic
like.
cats, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But normal looking sort of cats
Uh-huh.
walking across while I'm driving, and it felt like we were going 80. But I'd look at the speedometer, I'm like, we're going 20. Okay,
Wow.
let's get home.
Uh-huh.
But I remember feeling like, whoa, so connected to like the tree that was outside our apartment. And
Hmm.
just like, I was like in a video game. Like I felt like Clouds and Mario Brothers, and my friend was having like a bad trip.
Hmm.
But it didn't affect me. I don't know why or how, because I was a very, very, very fearful, afraid of anything spiritual as a kid. Because I
Hmm.
think I was already very sensitive growing up
For sure.
with seeing stuff, feeling stuff, hearing stuff.
Hmm.
And, so I look back and I'm like, how did I have such an amazing trip? Like, I must come from the fairy world because mushrooms are my friend. And it's not like I haven't had like a crazy trip since then.
Hmm.
I definitely have, where it's
Hmm.
just 8 hours of insane misery
Mm.
to do exactly what combo does, clear and
Shadow work.
release.
Hmm.
Yes, some shadow work. So, but yeah, so mushrooms have been with me for quite a while.
You know,
But
it's so interesting you say that because I feel so comfortable in those realms, even more so I might say than in this reality. You know, it just feels like
ah,
it feels so comfortable. It just feels like wow, like I can go here and retrieve really important information to bring back into this reality. You know, like I remember when I went on a really deep journey on mushrooms one time, I started speaking dolphin.
oh, that's epic. That's been coming up a lot lately for me.
It was really
The
interesting.
dolphin.
I was making the sounds and I was like, we're so close. And we are. Like, I looked it up after the trip that I think we're like 1 or 2 years out of completely being able to communicate with them because it's shown that they have a language.
Oh,
And
100%. Do you
yeah,
know about the CIA study
yeah.
with dolphins and how
Y-
they made it illegal for us to communicate with wild dolphins?
Oh, I don't think I've heard of that one. Whoa.
Okay. Yeah, the CIA or the agencies were studying dolphin language communication. And remember, like dolphin births used to be a thing.
Yeah.
Slowly they've like made it illegal or unlawful or whatever.
Hmm.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
So that's amazing that we're finding it regardless of the rules.
Hmm.
We're finding the ways to connect and
Yeah.
speak to them.
Yeah. It's so fascinating because you know, I lived in San Diego for 8 years and I always I had a little bit of fear of interacting with them because I was in the ocean almost every day and I would
Mm.
see them. I would see them like 20 yards out often, but I never had that interaction with them in the wild. And I still really want to experience that now that we're talking about it.
Me too. It's like so strong now. I'm like no more fear. It
Yeah,
whatever the fear that we probably have, and I'm sure a lot of others have, was not ours. It was
right.
the program, and we're
Yeah.
getting rid of that.
Yeah, well, you know what it was for me, I think, is my grandma told me a story of her interaction with the dolphin.
Okay.
and she was swimming, and this giant head like comes up behind her out of the water, and she starts like panicking and swimming away. And I think now that we're talking about it, that is still was still and might still be like a little bit of a seed that she planted in me. And I think they're so majestic, and they only help people, you know? And I think I believe that there was a dimension, or there is a dimension where I was like a mer person, like a mermaid,
Hmm.
because I've
Hmm.
had experiences where I'll be in this sound healing with these really far out channelers of light language. And I remember being in Vista, California, and this one woman was I actually need to reach out to her because she spoke like hundreds of light
Wow.
languages. And she was an amazing teacher.
Yeah, get
And
her on the podcast.
I know I got to reach out to her. I got to find her number. And so she started channeling this language and I started just crying.
Mm.
And and there was a knowing inside me that this was the first time in this body that I was hearing the Mer people their language. And I go up to her afterwards and I'm like, that third channeling that you did, was that Mer people? And she was like, yeah. And
Wow.
I was like, okay, there's something there. And it happened a few more times with other people channeling the Mer people, and always, each time there was this deep, like visceral experience for me.
Hmm. Like hit you in the core.
Yeah. So and yeah, so that was really interesting. The dolphin language came through in that journey, and then I also learned how to create energetic pyramids with language, like with sound. And
Yes.
yeah, that was really interesting because,
Hmm.
we can use sound to create energetic protection for ourselves with our intention and with the sound. And on mushrooms, actually, one time, I remember like me and my ex-girlfriend at the time created this energetic grid around the house. We had a men's retreat at the house, and we also created this really powerful energetic grid. And on the mushrooms, I opened the sliding glass door to go outside, and I just like see the energetic protection with my eyes. And I see and walk through like a little bit, like it's like a thin, like film almost. But it's very like I could only see it because I was on the mushrooms. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, the protection's working. And on ayahuasca, when I took a stronger dose, I remember this man gave me an amulet, and he's like, during the medicine, come to me and I'll activate it for you. And I remember watching him with my eyes open, and he's creating this energetic ball of protection around it. And he's using all these symbols, kind of like Reiki, it looked like. And I wasn't sure what it was, but he was activating it. And then there was a moment where he started doing something else, and I was like, no, that's not it. That's not going to help me. So I just kind of started clearing it out, and then I just I watched the energy ball, kind of like the chi balls that
Yeah.
people create. Like I watched him doing that in real time. So it's really like these kind of things are real and they work. And
Hmm.
on different medicines, we're able to actually see it with our eyes.
Yep. And I think we're getting closer to a time where our inner whatever is activating, where we can actually see some more things now going forward with the energy on the planet and the 100th monkey being awakened. Like we're all starting to, it's not going to take 16 years for the people waking up now. It's not going to take them like as long as
No,
it took us. It's going to
no.
be like the blueprint's there. Just enjoy your unique journey,
Hmm.
whatever medicine you're guided to, or,
Hmm.
you know, some shadow crappy experiences, they're only there to awaken you. It's like
Hmm. And
it's
and there's
amazing.
like facing the fear of the uncomfortability, of the unknown, of whatever may come up is where we grow.
Hmm.
And the shadow work, the bad trips, I don't believe there's a bad trip. It's just facing it's just facing that darkness, that those parts of ourselves that need to be looked at in order for the healing to happen. And it can be done in so many different ways. It doesn't even have to be on medicine. It can be with myofascial unwinding. It can be with Reiki. It can be with Kundalini yoga. And like we talked about right before we started the podcast, it can just be sitting with the pain,
Exactly.
just sitting with it in meditation or just closing your eyes and just talking to it. Like, what is this? Just with curiosity, not like I want it, I
Judgment.
want to know, it's like the monkey mind
Yeah.
wants to know so bad, but we don't always have to know. We can
No.
just clear it and release it, and then maybe at some point we'll get an insight of what it was, but maybe not. And that's all
Right.
okay too.
Yeah, one of my teachers always says, don't try to figure it out.
Hmm.
Just that's the mind stuff, trying to figure it out or label it or judge it or get you going over here. It's like,
Hmm.
just let it be, let it flow out or through.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So on a side note, can you talk a little bit for the viewers that are watching on YouTube? Can you talk a little bit about this beautiful piece of art that's behind you?
Yes. This specific one or just the painting in general?
Well, let's talk about what it is. It's a mandala, right?
It's a mandala, yeah. And
And
how
what
I
what are
go ahead.
mandalas?
Okay, so you probably know more about mandalas. I just create them. But how I see it is like I like the etymology of words a little bit, like
Hmm.
dissecting the friggin' label.
Hmm.
And mind, Allah, God.
Mm.
Bringing because I have a like I still struggle with training my mind to be a
Hmm.
good dog and listen.
It's an
Um,
ongoing journey.
it really is, and
Uh-huh.
every day is different. Especially in learning the feminine hormone cycle. Oh
Hmm.
man. So the mandala for me is a spiritual journey. And eventually I want to host workshops. That's like one of my sort of inklings to be of service is to
Hmm.
be able to give what I got out of, these paintings.
That's
And
beautiful.
I have a simple way of doing it that I learned, and anyone can do it. And when I sit down and start a piece, it's like time goes away. I could get
Mm.
lost. And I'm like, whoa, what time is it? Oh my God, it's in 10 hours. Or,
Wow.
and it's not that, it's like, it's not about me. I might be processing something. Like, for instance, this one came through during a really hard time.
Hmm.
And it started gray and dark and, shadowy.
Hmm.
And it was, I just try when I'm sitting with a mandala, the biggest piece for me, like learning and like becoming an artist, was there are no wrongs, Nikki. You're
Absolutely.
not doing it wrong. You're enough, and it really had it like when I would get stuck in a painting, guess where that was coming from? Stuckness in my system, stuckness in my mind, old something coming up to paint it out and to work through it.
Hmm.
And um yeah, it's a way of meditation for me because sometimes like I have a hard time like okay, I'm in the stillness of God. I am one. And then I'm like, what time is it? Wait.
Right.
Coffee sounds kind of good. stop.
Uh-huh.
I'm really in that process of training, but just like Kundalini yoga, like when you do the breath work and then you sit,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I feel the mandala is for me. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it gives my mind something to focus on. My Virgo likes the lines and coloring in perfect lines.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can do a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
working stuff out through the painting. And every painting, sometimes it'll take me 5 days. Sometimes it'll take me 6 months. Like I got one on the wall over here. It's probably 3 years in the making.
Wow.
It's like it just is what it is, and I can't be attached, and gotta let it flow. And eventually, I love painting. And one of the best things that I learned was like the group energy when we're
Oh yeah.
all like if you were there with your mandala
Mm-hmm.
and our friends are around the table and we're all painting a mandala together, it's like
Mm-hmm.
my painting will kind of bleed onto your painting. All of a sudden you're using the same color as me and I'm like, ooh, we're all one. And
Right.
my whole thing is like, in 2012 I started my Instagram, which was it just came to me. It was like
Mm-hmm.
one of the only times that like first it was Facebook and then Instagram came out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, what would my name be? And I always loved Bob Marley. So One Love. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, that's, not me. And so
Mm-hmm.
One Cosmic Love came out. And
Mm.
so that's my whole evolution. It's like my oversoul is One Cosmic Love. And that's where
Mhm.
the paintings, One Cosmic Love art.
Love it.
And yeah.
Yeah, and we
So,
can drop any of the links to your Etsy or your website so that people can take a look at all of your beautiful art.
okay.
Do you have an Etsy account?
Speaking of, I just like on Wednesday was talking to my therapist about starting an Etsy account. And I
Beautiful.
was like, I don't know what the resistance has been. Cause, I do plant dyes and like I don't know if you've seen on my Instagram, but I go through these phases of like what I'm making.
Yeah.
But Etsy seems like a good place to kind of put, because I have I don't like making myself very available, is what I'm seeing. So it'd be nice to have a
Mhm.
portal,
Yeah.
here's my link. Go check it
Yeah.
out. If anything resonates, great. So yeah, that'll be in the works. I think I have it. Like I just never loaded anything onto it.
Okay.
But I have a website that has mostly original pieces on there. So if
Okay.
you want, you can kind of look and read about like this one will have the story about how it came through and
Mm,
the kind of energetics that are infused into it.
beautiful. And each piece is unique and completely different and has a different activation just built into it.
Exactly. Should I show the one I'm working on?
Yeah.
It's like a sneak peek. I don't like, sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't, but
Sneak
it
peek. I
feels
love
like
it.
this is the Sri Yantra. It needs some work, but
It's already so
you
stunning.
know, it, it's coming alive. It's like watching something be birthed. And I'm like, I did that. Sometimes I'm like, how did I do
I
that?
love
It's
that.
not me.
Yeah, I love that because when I create art, when I'm done, I'm like, whoa, that just came through me. All right, cool. Good work,
That's the
dude.
flow state. That's our
Yeah.
flow state.
Hmm.
Yeah. I know those like what are the feather things you make? What are they called?
Like feather fans, sacred feather fans.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yep, those are epic. And all the
Yeah.
other stuff. Are you still working on jewelry?
So I am in the process of I work on stones right now. So I
Okay.
polish and cut stones. And then
Ooh.
I have I have the equipment for casting, which is like taking silver and different metals and creating like something out of wax and then pouring the metals into it. And then you have like a pendant or earrings or whatnot. But something feels like it still needs to click in with that. And I think I know I've been calling in a silversmithing teacher out here because I had one in San Diego.
Right.
And and that's the final piece to this.
Okay.
So once that comes together, I'm really close because I'm meeting people that are silversmiths, but they're like, no, I'm not taking any apprentices right now. So I'm like, all right,
Perfect.
I know I'm
It's
close.
timing.
Yeah.
Yep. And something someone said on your podcast was patience is love. And
Mm,
I was like, oh, bro, that is so deep because
yeah.
that word has been coming up so much. Just, Nikki, I know you feel like you're not where you need to be or should be, or you're not doing enough. No,
Hmm.
you are perfect just right here, right now.
That's it.
And just be patient. I promise. Like everything is unfolding just as I'm planning it. Thank you, God.
Yeah, it's a day by day thing and it just grows on itself, you know? It's like
Yeah.
if I set the intention to be of service, align with my highest timeline every day, then everything just starts opening up. And then slowly it builds on itself. More things start opening up. I align with more people that are doing similar things that I want to do or that they're already doing it and I haven't done it yet. And it's just beautiful how it all unfolds and just trusting the process.
Yep.
So, Nikki, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such an honor. We just kind of started to dive in. So,
Just scratching the little
yeah,
surface.
yep, yep. So let's plan for a part two for sure.
Okay, yeah. If people are like, I want to know the rest of that awakening story, for
Yeah,
sure, we'll have another link up.
yeah, and I mean, there's just so much more to talk about with ETs
Oh,
and
yeah.
all kinds of stuff out there that we'll dive
So
into next
much.
time. Yeah,
Okay, sounds great. And thank you for asking me to be on the show and just spread the love.
yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, see you.
All right, take care.